Hey everyone, how's it going? So UFC Fight Night Moreno versus Erceg just wrapped up, and I'm going to run through the whole card and break it down. Sorry about my voice, I'm just recovering from it being sick, so it's not 100% there yet, but yeah, let's just jump straight into it. And the first fight on the card was Marquel Mederos versus Hubbard. This was not a very fun fight. I predicted that Mederos was going to get done by a decision, and he did, but it was a pretty close decision, and you could actually argue that Hubbard won. Round one opens up, and barely anything was really thrown on the feet. They were sort of running around the octagon, sort of trying to distance each other. And then Mederos was sort of getting these bigger shots. Hubbard ended up getting into a clinch with Mederos against a cage, where they'd occasionally sort of swap who was being pushed up against a cage. And during this, Mederos was landing some of the smaller shots to Hubbard, but not much happened that round. Round two, not much from Mederos. The round was most likely won by Hubbard, due to Hubbard being on the back of a standing Mederos for most of the round. And round three, same thing as last round to start with a lot of cage clinching. Hubbard gets a takedown, but doesn't do anything, and he just sort of maintains top position. But in the last minute, they get back to the feet, and Mederos does some real damage in his striking, and overall, it was a very, very close fight. Split decision, Mederos, and that was just mainly due to damage. Next fight. Next up from the card was Jamall Emmers and Gabriel Miranda. So I predicted that Jamall Emmers would get this one done. I predicted a round 2 KO. I was right about Jamall Emmers winning, but he actually got it done in the first round with a KO. They start off standing with a small exchange on the feet, but Miranda sort of shoots in instantly for a takedown. And it looks a bit worrying for Emmers. He's sort of getting controlled on the ground. Miranda's trying to lock in this choke from side control somehow. Anyway, they get back to the feet, and then Emmers just starts landing on Miranda. Miranda has his chin so high up that he just keeps getting caught on the chin with these shots. He starts to get Miranda out on the feet, with Miranda sort of doing this little hot step chicken dance sort of thing, you know, a Laskrov sort of thing. And then Emmers just lands this right in the clinch that drops Miranda. Emmers follows up with this big shot to the head while he's on the ground and finishes off Miranda very quickly. This fight was pretty good. It was a refreshing fight after the sort of 3-round ball fest that was Marquel versus Hubbard. Yeah. Next up on the card was Rafa Garcia versus Vinc Pichel. Now, I predicted that Rafa Garcia was going to get this one done by a decision win. I was correct. He took this one by a pretty unanimous decision. Round 1 opens up, and Rafa Garcia gets hit early with this shot that damages his left eye pretty badly. Outside that, Garcia occasionally lands a powerful shot over the top that stuns Pichel, while Pichel is sort of more landing volume and not as powerful shots, but more often. But overall, I think the power of Garcia overrode any volume that Pichel was throwing during this round, winning Garcia the first. Round 2 opens up, and Garcia starts to slow down a little bit, and Pichel is finding more openings to sort of start landing these combos on Garcia. Outside of that, Pichel eye pokes Garcia, and when Garcia later claims he's been eye poked again, Pichel sort of lunges in and just starts landing these big combos on him. Yeah, so that was definitely Pichel's round. Round 3, the pace returns to that of the first round. It's sort of a little bit quicker, and Garcia's power shots are ultimately winning him the round. The scorecards were a bit generous though, with a 30-27, but I think Pichel won the second, so I'd give it 29-28, but yeah, Garcia won 30-27. Next up on the card was loopy Godinez versus Julia Polastri. Now, I predicted that Godinez was going to get this one done by a decision win, and I got that 100% right, even the method. Round 1 opens up, and early in the round, Godinez catches the leg of Polastri, lifts it up, and trips her in a really impressive looking takedown. For the rest of the round, she maintains top position and gets some really good ground and pound in, especially to the body, where she starts sort of targeting the liver of Polastri. Round 2 opens up, same situation as round 1. Godinez lands a takedown very early in the round and is winning the round mainly through control time and ground and pound. There were little moments on the feet where Polastri would be doing very visible damage to Godinez, but it wasn't really enough to win the round. Entering round 3, 2 rounds up, Godinez starts striking and landing on the head of Polastri, but Polastri's chin is just something else. It gets to the point where Polastri just drops her hands and starts walking forward, sort of tanking these shots from Godinez in exchange to land her own, and this starts working. She starts landing good on Godinez, starts doing damage. It starts to pile up to the point where Godinez's nose just starts leaking blood, and near the end, Godinez does get stung and sort of dazed by a few of these shots that Polastri's landing, But in the end, Godinez was already up 2 rounds. Regardless of whether Polastri won this last one, Godinez takes this one by decision, and she did. Next fight. Moving up the card, we have Christian Rodriguez versus Melquizael Costa. Now, I actually took a risk and picked Costa as the underdog for this fight. I said it'd get it done by a round 2 submission. I was correct about Costa winning, but it actually went to a decision. Breaking down the fight, round 1, very boring first round, with the majority of the round being a battle for who sort of gets the cage clinch. So they just sort of pushed up against cage, reversing position. I think they were like equal when it came to top dominant positioning on the cage, but I think Costa really took it through the smaller strikes that he was landing while in the clinch. Round 2 opens up and they start doing the same thing, clinching up against the cage, but then it eventually moves to the ground and Costa starts showing his grappling proficiency by escaping multiple submission attempts that C-Rod tries to lock in on him, and he eventually reverses and gets top position, and in this top position he starts to get some really good shots in and cuts C-Rod open with a good elbow around halfway through the round. Overall, 2 rounds up for Costa, I had it. Round 3 opens and C-Rod starts to pick up the pace a little bit on the feet and land some pretty good shots on Costa that sort of visibly take him out of the fight and daze him a little bit as he's pushed up against the cage. Costa attempts some unsuccessful takedowns and the damage done by C-Rod won him this round. However, it's a little too late, and Costa ended up taking this one by a decision win. Not the most impressive performance, but you know, it's still a pretty good win for him. Next fight. And closing out the prelims, we have Jose Daniel Medina versus Ateba Gautier. Now, I predicted that Gautier was going to get this one done by a round 2 knockout. I was correct about him winning the fight, but he actually got it finished a lot earlier with a round 1 KO. Breaking down the fight, Medina harnessed his inner Cheetah Vera this fight and just became a human punching bag pretty much for the whole fight. He didn't really throw anything back, and this didn't take away from Gautier. He did look really impressive this fight, and he looked very comfortable. He had some very sleek and sort of very fluid striking. He wasn't stiff at all. He looked very comfortable in the octagon, and I'm really excited to see where he goes in the future. But in this fight, man, he just ended up teeing off on Medina's head. Medina was taunting throughout the whole fight after getting dropped and wobbled, which didn't make any sense. And then eventually gets to the point where he gets pushed up against the cage and Gautier just starts battering Medina before putting him down with a knee that didn't actually put him out, but the ref called it. And I didn't see Medina coming back, so fair enough call from the ref, but he wasn't really out. But good win for Gautier. Next fight. Moving on to the main card, we have Ronaldo Rodriguez versus Kevin Borjas. Now, I predicted that Ronaldo Rodriguez was going to get this one done by a round 1 submission. I was wrong. Kevin Borjas actually won this one by a decision. Breaking down the fight, round 1, Ronaldo Rodriguez comes out very fast and strong, throwing these wheel kicks and these double head kicks, which while they look flashy and all that, none of them were actually landing. And then Borjas comes out of nowhere and just hits Rodriguez down the middle with this straight right, I think it was, and sends him flying backwards. I thought he was out. Rodriguez does this sort of roly-poly on the ground and stands back up again and seemingly is unaffected by it. But then Rodriguez gets dropped 2 more times throughout this round, and it's a very obvious round for Borjas just from striking and damage. Round 2 opens up and Ronaldo starts slowing down and is throwing a bit more orthodox and sort of fighting like normal, not trying to get these crazy flashy shots in. But he is getting outstruck by Borjas this round as well, and I just had to score that one for Borjas. Round 3, Ronaldo Rodriguez starts doing slightly better on the feet, but he is getting caught with these counter punches from Borjas that sort of make him go back to throwing these flashy kicks, trying to get a finish, because he already knew he lost the last 2 rounds, and man, he just isn't landing any of them, and he gave that round away and sort of sold the fight at that point. And it's very disappointing. This performance wasn't amazing from Rodriguez. He was so focused on the home crowd and getting this finish. And on top of missing weight, man, he needs to sort of come back a bit more well-rounded. And yeah, Borjas took this one by decision. Next up on the main card, we had David Martinez versus Saimon Oliveira. Now, I predicted that David Martinez was going to win this one. I predicted a round 1 KO, and I hit the nail on the head because David Martinez did win this one by a round 1 KO. Martinez comes out very strong in the first round. He was throwing these powerful leg kicks that very quickly caused Oliveira to sort of switch stances. You can see the damage sort of getting to him. And then later in the round, Martinez starts warming up and starts using his hands a bit more. He starts landing these combos to the body and head, which start putting Oliveira on the back foot. Martinez follows up, and in the last 30 seconds of the fight, Martinez tags Oliveira with this big shot that puts him down, and then he finishes the fight with ground and pound. Not much to say about this one. Very impressive performance from Martinez. Yeah, next fight. Next fight was Raul Rosas Jr. versus Vinc Morales. Now, I predicted that Rosas was going to get this one done by a decision win, and I hit the nail on the head with that one. I got that 100% correct. Rosas did win this one by a decision win. At the start of round one, Rosas was looking a lot better on the feet. He was sort of pushing Morales up against the cage with constant pressure before lifting him up and slamming him in the center of the octagon. And then for the rest of the round, Rosas just maintained side control, and he took the back for the rest of it. However, in the last 20 seconds, Morales did threaten a submission in this round, which I think it was a necktie, and this is relevant for the later rounds. Round 2, back on the feet. The striking is about equal this round. Morales might potentially actually be landing the bigger shots. However, Rosas quickly takes Morales down and maintains dominant positioning for the rest of the round. So at this point I had it 2-0 Rosas Jr. Round 3, Morales starts looking very good at the start. He's pushing Rosas back with forward pressure, and Rosas ends up shooting this takedown out of like sort of panic that Morales sprawls, and he lands this sort of nice necktie choke on Rosas that Rosas somehow manages to escape. It almost got him very tight. From there, Rosas reverses Morales and takes the back, maintaining that position for a large part of the round. At the end, Morales has another shot with this necktie submission, but Rosas survives until the bell, and he ends up taking a decision win. Next up, we had Edgar versus CJ Vergara. Now, I predicted that Chairez was going to get this one done by a decision win. I was correct about Chairez winning, but he actually got a round 1 submission, which, I mean, I probably could have expected. He's a pretty good submission artist. Round 1 opens up, and I just noted here that Chairez looks like Pereira if he ever went on Ozempic. Do with that what you will. All jokes aside, Chairez comes out tagging Vergara with his stiff jab to start off with that causes swelling and redness under the eye of Vergara straight off the bat. Vergara then gets caught and dropped with this left hook that sort of drops him badly before Vergara sort of gets up and tries to run around the octagon to sort of buy himself some time to compose himself. Chairez chases him down and catches him again, dropping him before sort of grabbing him by the neck and pulling him back down to the ground, where he locks in a rear naked choke and wins the fight. Very, very quick fight, and it felt really weird seeing someone that looks so much like Potan crying and showing emotion, and I think he even did make a Potan reference on the mic, so a very wholesome moment. All jokes aside, Chairez looked amazing this fight, and if he keeps having performances like this, I see big things for him in the future. Yeah, next fight. And now we're over the co-main event, Manuel Torres versus Drew Dober. Now, I predicted that Manuel Torres would get this one done by round 2 KO. I was actually correct about Torres in the KO part. He actually finished it in round 1, a lot quicker than I would have expected. Round 1, Torres is using his reach to hit Dober with these long stiff jabs and crosses, while Dober sort of waits for his chance to blitz in when Torres is against the cage. It happens about once, but Dober just can't really push him back far enough, and then eventually Torres lands one of these straight rights down the middle and drops Dober. Dober for some reason sprawls out and grabs the leg of Torres, but Torres just starts landing this ground and pound, hammer fisting him to the side of the head, and Dober doesn't give up the leg. He sort of holds onto it until he's like completely out, and the stoppage actually happened pretty late. Torres is slamming these hammer fists about 15 or 16 before they cool off the fight, and Dober just doesn't defend any of them. It's kind of scary. Dober gets back up and starts trying to fight Torres again because he didn't realize the fight got called off. He looked really confused on the bench when they were explaining what happened. Overall, really good win for Torres, and he has some big things in the future set up for him after a performance like that. Yeah, next fight. And now we arrive at the main event, Brandon Moreno versus Steve Erceg. Now, I predicted that Erceg was going to win this one by a decision win. I was wrong. Moreno actually ended up taking this one by a decision, and I'm just going to jump straight into the fight. Round 1, Moreno comes out strong on the feet, and he keeps landing these overhand rights that keep sort of tagging and wobbling and dazing Erceg. Erceg ends up sort of stumbling around for a lot of the first round after being hit with them, and he just wasn't able to find anything to throw back at Moreno. Moreno wins that round pretty convincingly. Round 2, Erceg starts to sort of get a read on Moreno and how much he relies on these right overhands, and he begins to find his distance and land his own counter shots when Moreno sort of blitzes in with these overhands. He also starts landing these knees down the middle and targeting the body of Moreno a bit more, which I think sort of won him this round. Moreno didn't really switch up much in this round. He kept going in with that same overhand right. So Erceg's round 2 in my opinion. Round 3, Moreno starts mixing it up a bit. He starts targeting the body and legs a bit more and going a bit easier on that overhand right. However, Erceg is finding success with his jab cross combos with an occasional hook that would land and deal some real damage. It was a very close round, but I have to score for Erceg based on how little Moreno landed in that round. Round 4, Erceg sticks with the same sort of jab cross combo, and while it was working earlier, it isn't really as effective against the Moreno with a tighter sort of high guard. He starts sort of focusing on keeping this high guard up this round. Still, the occasional jab will slip through from Erceg and rend in the face of Moreno, but Moreno in this round is getting scrappier and is throwing these more unorthodox combos that are catching Erceg off guard. Another somewhat close round, but I have to give it to Moreno for landing the harder shots, and combined with the takedown at the end of the round, I think he definitely won this round. So I had a 2-2 going into the 5th round. Round 5 starts off somewhat close, but Moreno is starting to pick up the pace and becomes a bit more unpredictable with his striking. Erceg is sticking with his jab and cross combo and occasionally throwing in a hook, which are only really occasionally landing through the high guard of Moreno. At the end of the round, Moreno scores another takedown and holds Erceg down for the remainder of the round, definitely winning him that round quite convincingly. And when it gets to the cards, Brandon Moreno takes it with a unanimous 49-46 decision, which I thought was a bit steep, but I'm not going to scream robbery. I had it more 48-47, but I can see a 49-46. As for Steve Erceg, I think he has a lot of reflecting to do on his performance in this fight. He wasn't bad by any means, but the problem with him this fight was he was just way too technical. He kind of reminded me of Corey Sandhagen a little bit, where he would only throw when he knew that they were going to sort of land, and he would only throw the same thing. And while he was finding a little bit of success slipping through the guard with his jab combos, it just wasn't enough, and the volume just wasn't there to even come close to what Moreno was throwing. I think if he got a bit messier like he did in the Pantoja fight, sort of entering these clinches, throwing the elbows, throwing the knees, I think he would have done a lot better. And to steal another Perth fighter, if he had sort of JDM's mentality of die or be killed, I think that would have really benefited in this fight. As for his next opponent, I think they should remake the fight with Almabayev that was originally supposed to happen. Rankings wise, it both makes sense. They both lost their respective fights when they got switched out, so that's there as well. And I want to see Erceg back on a full camp, and I think lining them up like that gives them each around 6 months to turn around. And I don't want to see any switch ups in the opponents with Erceg, where he needs to fight someone way above him. He needs a bounce back fight. I think Albayev's the next one. As for Moreno, he looked really good this fight, but there are some concerning patterns I noticed, mainly his reliance on the overhand right. I noticed it a bit in the Albazi fight, but here it was very obvious. He relies very heavily on that overhand right to sort of daze and stun his opponents. He did switch it up later in this fight, but it was a pattern I saw. That's very overcomable. As for his next fight, I think that if they are running up Pantoja Kaikara France at 316, I think he should wait out and maybe try and get a title shot at 320 when they're going back to Mexico for UFC Noche. If it's not happening, if Pantoja isn't fighting until later in the year, and Kaikara France is looking to turn around, I think they could do a Kaikara France Moreno #1 contender fight in the meantime. But yeah, it's a bit hard with the current state of flyweight. So that was it, guys. That was UFC Fight Night Moreno versus Erceg. Once again, apologies, I'm very sick. Of this fight card, I actually did really well. I got 83% of my predictions correct on who would win, and of those wins, I got 80% of the methods correct, which is probably a high score so far. Cam didn't do as well. He only got 67% of the predictions correct. Overall, if I had to rank this card, I'd put it slightly above the Seattle card, not by much. I'd put it at the top of B tier. It was a really good card. There were a few fights that weren't amazing, mainly the earlier prelim ones, and the main event wasn't anything crazy. But yeah, it was a decent card overall with some really fun fights on it. Yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one for Emmett versus Murphy. Jeez Louise. Yeah, bye.